Have you ever noticed how some people slowly stop taking you seriously, without ever saying it directly? No big argument. No obvious conflict. Just small changes. They interrupt you more. They cancel plans. They ignore your opinions. And somewhere deep down, you feel it, the respect isn't the same anymore. What's confusing is that you didn't do anything wrong. You were helpful, understanding, available, easy to deal with. In fact, you probably tried harder than most people to be good to others. So why does respect disappear? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Respect isn't based on how kind you are. It's based on how you behave under pressure. The signals you send. The boundaries you allow. The standards you enforce. And without realizing it, many people accidentally train others to value them less. The real question isn't who disrespected you. The real question is, what patterns taught them they could. Most people assume respect comes automatically when you are kind, helpful, or polite. But the uncomfortable truth is, respect doesn't work that way. Respect is not a reward for being good, it is a reflection of how others perceive your value. Your brain constantly evaluates social hierarchies, even when you're unaware. Others do the same. Every interaction sends signals. How you respond under pressure, how you enforce boundaries, how consistent you are with your words and actions. These subtle behaviors quietly tell people whether you are someone worth valuing. Here's the key: respect is not about intention, it's about perception. You might genuinely want to be helpful or accommodating, but if your actions communicate that you tolerate mistreatment, people will unconsciously assign you lower social status. Over time, small patterns, saying yes too often, avoiding confrontation, seeking approval, shape how others see you. That's why respect can vanish without warning. It isn't about a single mistake or failure. It's about accumulated signals. The person who seems taken for granted usually didn't notice the invisible scripts they wrote through their behavior. The harsh reality? You don't have to be disliked or mistreated for respect to fade. It can disappear quietly, slowly, as your patterns tell people what they can expect from you, long before they ever consciously decide to stop valuing you. Once you understand this hidden truth, you realize that reclaiming respect isn't about being better, it's about changing the way you allow yourself to be seen. One of the fastest ways people lose respect for you is by saying yes too much. At first, it feels harmless, even helpful. You think being agreeable, cooperative, or reliable will make others like you more. And it does, for a moment. But human psychology works differently. The brain doesn't respect someone who is always available. Scarcity creates value. People naturally respect what they cannot easily take for granted. When you say yes to every request, you send subtle signals. Your time is disposable, your energy is optional, your limits don't matter. Others start assuming they can push boundaries because you never push back. Over time, availability becomes predictability. Your opinions, needs, and desires begin to fade into the background. Respect is not built on kindness alone, it is built on the perception of worth. And saying yes too often lowers that perceived value. Psychologically, this is rooted in behavioral conditioning. Every time you agree under pressure, your brain reinforces a pattern. Compliance is safer than resistance. Others pick up on this pattern unconsciously and start testing limits more aggressively. It's not always malicious. Sometimes people simply take advantage of what's consistently offered. But the effect is the same. You become less respected because your behavior has taught others that you have no boundaries. The key insight is that saying yes automatically is not virtue, it is vulnerability. Learning to pause, evaluate requests, and assert limits doesn't make you selfish, it restores balance. Respect grows when your yes is deliberate, not default. And the moment you regain control over your choices, people start valuing you again, not for what you give them constantly, but for what you choose to give. One of the most common reasons people start losing respect for you is something subtle: weak boundaries. Boundaries aren't just rules you set for others, they are signals your brain sends about your self-worth. When you allow people to repeatedly overstep, your behavior unconsciously communicates that your time, energy, and needs are negotiable. And humans are incredibly sensitive to those signals. Think about it. If someone constantly interrupts you, borrows things without asking, or pressures you to do favors you don't want to, and you never push back, your brain has already learned the pattern. It silently instructs your social circle. This is allowed. Over time, that tolerance erodes respect. Weak boundaries don't just invite small acts of disregard. They create a ripple effect. People begin expecting more from you, assuming your limits are flexible. And when your limits are invisible, you lose leverage in every interaction. Others no longer perceive you as someone who can enforce consequences, someone whose presence carries weight. Instead, you appear pliable, predictable, and emotionally available on demand. Setting boundaries isn't about being rude or selfish. It's about clarity and consistency. Even small actions, saying no to unreasonable requests, pausing before committing, or calmly expressing your limits, signal strength. The moment you enforce boundaries, your social brain recognizes it. Respect rises naturally because people now know you value yourself, and by extension, they value their relationship with you. Weak boundaries silently train others how to treat you. Strong boundaries quietly demand respect. Understanding this principle is essential. The people around you don't set your value, you do. And the first step toward reclaiming respect begins with the simple, deliberate act of defining your limits. Another major reason people lose respect for you is constant approval seeking. At first, it looks harmless. You want to be liked. You want harmony. You adjust your opinions slightly so others feel comfortable. You laugh when something isn't funny. You agree when you're unsure. You avoid disagreement to prevent tension. But here's what actually happens beneath the surface. When you consistently shake yourself around other people's reactions, you signal uncertainty. And uncertainty weakens authority. Humans instinctively respect those who appear internally grounded, people whose views don't shift depending on who they're talking to. When your identity feels flexible in every room, people stop anchoring to you. Instead of seeing you as stable, they see you as adaptable to pressure. Approval seeking also creates predictability. If others know you fear disapproval, they unconsciously recognize influence. They realize you're unlikely to challenge them, unlikely to walk away, unlikely to hold firm. That reduces perceived strength. Ironically, the more you chase acceptance, the less impactful your presence becomes. Not because people dislike you, but because they don't feel a clear edge. No friction. No resistance. And without resistance, there's no weight. Respect grows when someone is willing to risk mild disapproval to stay aligned with their values. It doesn't require aggression. It requires self-trust. The moment you stop negotiating your personality for approval, something shifts. Your words carry more conviction. Your silence carries more meaning. And people begin responding differently, not because you demanded respect, but because you stopped begging for acceptance. Another reason people lose respect for you is simple: there are no consequences for crossing you. Human behavior runs on patterns and outcomes. If someone interrupts you and nothing happens, they'll interrupt again. If someone disrespects your time and you still show up available, they learn your limits aren't real. Not consciously. Not maliciously. Just predictably. Respect is closely tied to accountability. When actions carry no cost, boundaries become suggestions. And suggestions don't command seriousness. Many people confuse being mature with being endlessly tolerant. They think ignoring disrespect makes them emotionally strong. In reality, repeated tolerance without response signals permission. You teach others what they can get away with. Over time, your reactions lose credibility because there's no follow-through behind them. Consequences don't mean aggression, drama, or revenge. They mean alignment between words and actions. If you say you value your time, you stop rewarding lateness. If you say something is unacceptable, you withdraw access when it continues. Calmly. consistently. The moment people see that your boundaries have weight, that crossing them changes access, attention, or cooperation, behavior shifts. Not because you became harsh, but because you became predictable in enforcement. Without consequences, respect decays. With consistent consequences, it stabilizes. People don't test strong boundaries twice. They test weak ones repeatedly. And if disrespect keeps repeating in your life, the uncomfortable question isn't, "Why do they keep doing this?" It's, "What have I taught them will happen if they do?" The final reason people lose respect for you has less to do with them, and more to do with the signals you send about yourself. Self-respect is not a speech. It's not confidence quotes. It's not posture or tone alone. It's behavioral consistency. People constantly scan for cues about how you see yourself. Do you apologize excessively? Do you downplay your achievements? Do you tolerate jokes at your expense? Do you accept treatment you privately resent? Every small signal compounds. When you minimize your own value, others subconsciously adjust their valuation of you. Not out of cruelty, but calibration. Social dynamics are responsive. If you speak about yourself as if you're secondary, optional, or lucky to be included, people begin interacting with you at that level. Self-respect shows up in micro behaviors: how you enter a room, how you handle disagreement, whether you maintain eye contact, whether your words match your actions. It shows in what you laugh at, what you decline, what you allow. You don't need arrogance to command respect. You need internal alignment. When you treat your time as valuable, others hesitate to waste it. When you treat your standards as real, others adapt to meet them. When you remain composed under pressure, your presence gains weight. Respect is rarely demanded successfully. It's signaled consistently. And the uncomfortable truth is this: people often mirror the level of respect you visibly hold for yourself. If you want the dynamic to change, the first adjustment isn't external. It's internal, and it's observable. How to gain respect back? If you've realized respect has faded, the solution isn't confrontation, it's correction. First, stop over-explaining. When you justify every decision, you signal uncertainty. Speak clearly. Briefly. Let your words stand without excessive defense. Certainty reduces negotiation. Second, tighten your boundaries immediately. Not aggressively, consistently. If someone interrupts, calmly finish your sentence. If someone wastes your time, reduce availability. Behavior changes when access changes. Third, eliminate approval-seeking habits. Don't soften your opinions to maintain comfort. Disagreement handled calmly increases perceived strength. You don't need to win arguments. You need to stop abandoning your position under pressure. Fourth, align actions with standards. If you say something matters to you, prove it through behavior. Respect grows when people see patterns, not promises. Most importantly, regulate your emotions. Emotional overreactions weaken authority, but so does emotional suppression. Controlled responses signal stability. Stability builds trust. Trust builds respect. Here's the truth: you don't demand respect back. You demonstrate a new standard. And when your behavior shifts consistently, not for a day, but over time, people recalibrate. Some will adjust. Some won't. The ones who don't were benefiting from your old patterns. Respect isn't reclaimed through words. It's reclaimed through changed behavior. Here's the twist most people miss. Respect was never something others randomly decided to give or take. It was a response. A reflection. A reaction to patterns you repeated long enough to normalize. The uncomfortable part? Every time you tolerated what you disliked, laughed at what bothered you, or stayed silent when you disagreed, you weren't protecting peace, you were rewriting your own value. People didn't wake up and choose to respect you less. They adapted. And now the real shift begins when you stop asking, "Why did they change?" and start asking, "When did I?"